Hello everyone, my name is Rafal and welcome to another episode how I create this headshot. So today we're going to take a completely different approach and I'm going to show you how I actually create my male headshot. And this time I'm going to talk about like a different concept when it comes to creative background, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how I shoot my headshot with projector. This is one of the most popular concept and a lot of people always have tons of questions, so I'm going to try to go through some of those challenges and things which people struggle the most, and I'm going to try to make this clear and give you some tips and advice how to make this work. It's not easy process. It took me a little bit of time to, I would say, kind of make this work, but as soon as you kind of know all the details and you know how to approach this concept, it's kind of amazing what you can create. Sky is the limit because you can create tons of different very interesting backgrounds, and you can really, I would say, create your own style when it comes to your headshots. So we're going to also go through the equipment, and also we're going to go through my entire retouching process. So this is the actually the retouched image, but we're going to go through the entire process. It's a little bit of different, I would say, way of retouching male headshots. Is a little bit of less work, although the principles are pretty much the same, but we're gonna go through this and I'm gonna basically kind of discuss this entire process. So before we do that, let's jump in and let's talk about the lighting and this entire process. So this is basically the behind the scene image, and let's kind of go through it, I would say, step by step. So as you guys probably noticed, my lighting didn't change much. I still use my two deep octas from Elinchrom. One of them is 39 inches and the second one is 27 inches. The one thing what I want to point it out here is the power of the light and also the distance. So you guys probably notice most of the time my softboxes are very close to the subject, but because of the projector, and we're gonna kind of go through this projector in more details, but in this particular case, to make this work, I had to, I would say, have this power a little bit less, so it's 1/64 of the power, and also I have to move my softboxes a little bit away because it was basically too much light, and in order to make this work and make this background visible, I have to move those softboxes away from the subject. On the top of it, I was using, as you guys probably can see, reflector. It's pretty much the same. What I'm using all the time is 37 inches Lastolite silver, and this is pretty much my entire setup. And let's talk about the projector and let's talk about those details, because this is where people get most confused, and this is where everyone has all those specific questions. So first of all, what I want to mention here is the projector which I'm using is extremely old. I think it has over 10 years old, so it's nothing fancy, nothing high-end. This projector also has only 1600 lumens, so it's not very powerful. I would say it's on the lower end. Plus, believe it or not, I have never changed the light bulb in it, so it's pretty worn down, but it still works. So like, I have to say, I'm still able to pull off some of those cool backgrounds, but again, you don't have to spend, I would say, thousands and thousands of dollars to get some high-end, high-resolution projectors. You can get some cheap ones, and as you know how to approach this whole thing, you also are going to be able to create something very interesting. So what is the biggest challenge? First of all, you have to kill all the ambient light, and even this particular photo session was done during the day. I basically killed as much as possible this ambient light. Plus, on the top of it, a lot of people are asking what kind of material you want to project this on. And as you guys probably can see here, I'm basically projecting this background on my wall, and it's not even white, it's matte, so it's also kind of reflecting the light funny way. But if you want to kind of get most out of it, I would suggest to have a white background, but again, You really don't have to. You can use any reflective surface and it's still gonna work. As you guys probably can see, the projector is, I would say, I think is around 4 meters away from the background. So basically I have enough size to basically create that background, and it's on the full, I would say, power, and I basically pull out some images from online just to kind of, you know, get some colors, some patterns. And the one thing what I also want to mention, try to pick images which are not really dark, because basically dark colors, they don't reflect much. So the more bright colors you have, then basically the background is gonna look better. So this is kind of like a little tip. The second tip what I want to also mention here is the way you want to set this whole thing up is you basically set up your projector and then take the test shot to see what kind of background you're getting. Then you can try to work with, you know, all the settings, and we're going to talk about the settings in a second. So try to basically start from the background and then start adding lights, because if you kind of put this whole thing together, usually people getting kind of confused, things don't work. So you need to kind of break this entire process into steps so you can see how those lights affecting each other. So one of the things also what I want to mention is, and that's what people struggle the most, try to also move your subject as far as possible from the background so your main light doesn't affect the background. Because I've been hearing a lot of stories where people setting everything up and basically they don't even see the background, and what it's happening is pretty much the main light pushes so much light, so affecting the background, and that's why this whole thing become basically washed out, and you know, you're not getting this, you know, cool effects. Also in this particular case, as you guys probably also can see, I'm using the Rembrandt light, so light is not aiming on the background. In this particular soft boxes, I have to say, those ones, they're very, you can really control the light as far as the direction goes. So that's something which also kind of is important, so you're not basically throwing some light on the background. So you want to make sure that you setting the lights the way so it's not affecting the background, right? So the one thing is having the softbox in the angle and have the background, I would say, a little bit more far away, so it's basically separated and basically it's not getting affected by your main light. And as far the power goes, you guys probably can see it's much less power, and that's why, you know, like I can really nicely capture the background. So this is all the specifics. If you have a chance to shoot in some locations which is much darker, it's better, or shooting in the evening where, you know, there is not much light, or shooting in the locations where you can basically kill all the ambient light, it's gonna make this entire process much easier, and you're gonna get some amazing effects. So this is basically the behind the scene and how I set up my lights. Then we got into basically shooting. So let's kind of take a look at all the settings. So pretty much nothing changed much. I'm shooting still on my Nikon D800, Nikon 70-200 VR2, it was my lens. Then I was using Nikon SB910 and Nikon SB800 for two speed lights. We talk a little bit about the soft boxes, and then let's go to settings. So as you guys probably noticed, all my shoot, the focal length was 200, and this particular reason behind it, so I can compress the background really nicely. The shutter speed was 1 to 125 seconds of the second. It's still around 125 to about 200, so that's kind of the average, but that's kind of what's giving me the amazing results. f3.5, of course, again, it's much open than usual, but this is just because I have to basically get this lighting from the projector. And as you guys probably noticed, the ISO went a little bit up. I went all the way up to 50, the ISO, and this is again so I could kind of capture all this light from the background. And I added, of course, the white balance, and also I shoot manually. And basically the white balance was set up to my speedlight and was 5000 Kelvin. So let's jump into actual image, what I got from it, and then we're going to basically go through entire retouching process. So that was the image from basically the camera. It still looks okay. I think the blacks are a little bit washed out. There is some stuff on his skin, and so we're gonna kind of step by step bring this whole thing to another level. So the first step, of course, was the general cleaning. So that was the layer number 1. So you guys probably notice he had some, I would say, stuff on the skin, which we basically removed. There is some things on his lip. With the guys, you don't want to remove everything, because guys usually want to have a little bit more rough look, so you don't want to kind of make this beauty, I would say, shot. You want to do some cleaning, but you just don't do it as, I would say, intense whenever you're shooting female headshots. So I clean up, some of those things which I thought, they shouldn't be there. There's some little scars, there's some pimples and some of those stuff. So I actually remove them. Pretty easy process. The next step, what I've done, of course, is my dodge and burn. So basically everything what has some discolorations or some harsh shadows and things which shouldn't be there, so I clean it up a little bit, so just smooth it out the skin. So you guys probably can see it was after, this is before. So the skin looks more, I would say, smooth, a little bit more clean. Like that's always kind of helps to kind of bring this to another level, and looks this whole thing much nicer. The next step was work on his eyes. As you guys probably remember, I'm talking about it all the time. The eyes are one of the most important, I would say, parts of the headshot, and you always want to make sure that the eyes, they look much more brighter, and they have this like look which has some kind of impact. So basically this is really easy process. You brighten them up a little bit. We work a little bit to make them a little bit more contrasty, and we increase a little bit of sharpness just to kind of make them look a little bit better. The next step, of course, is color toning. So basically I went through variety of color balance, then we did like a little bit of contrast, then we did a little bit of saturation, we took it a little bit down. Then I work a little bit on the background, and we basically create a little bit more contrast to it. And then I remove, basically I just cut him out just to kind of focus on the background itself, so we're not affecting his skin. And the next step was basically the liquefying. So the color was the one thing, but usually the last step. So I just make everything looks much more, I would say, smooth and more, so there's no stuff on his shirts, or like we fix a little bit the hair as well, so it basically looks much nicer. There's a little bit of symmetry to the image. So that was the next step. Then basically what I've decided to do, because I kind of, when I was looking at that image, I realized those blacks and dark tones, they're kind of washed out. So basically I take selective color, and I actually just went directly to black tones, and I just kind of increase the blacks. So as you guys probably can see right now, the image pretty much has a little bit more contrast and looks a little bit better. Okay, so the next step, I went through another dodge and burn process, much more lighter, just to kind of take out some of those harsh shadows and smooth them out a little bit, so it looks a little bit much nicer, so you guys can see. Pretty subtle thing, but still we taking this whole thing to, I would say, another level, and then we just basically taking this whole skin to like a little notch higher, and looks much more smoother. So the next step here was selective color, and again I actually just took a little bit of, I don't know, it's so subtle that you guys probably not even see this, but I've noticed that the skin has a lot of yellow in it. And like I can actually see those things, and then I decided to basically take the yellow out a little bit just to kind of make those skin looks a little much more warmer and just much more delicate, right? So the next step, that pretty much concludes everything here. I did a couple another layers just to kind of show you guys this entire process. So let's kind of uncheck this entire process and see how this whole thing looks like. So that was actually before, that was the image straight from the camera, and after the entire retouching process, the image looked like this. So it's a little bit different. There's a little bit more contrast. It seems like some of those background colors, they pop a little bit, and that's something what also I want to mention here, which is extremely important, that everything what you're getting straight from the camera, of course, has some issues, and Photoshop can kind of bring some of those things up, and you can increase some of those colors, some of those tones. You can bring a little bit of more saturation. So don't get discouraged that if your images, they're not super perfect straight from the camera. And most of the time, whenever you're shooting with the projector, the colors are always a little bit washed out. Some of those backgrounds don't work. Some of them they do kind of partially, but you still need to kind of work on them. So try to see what you can get best basically from shooting, and then what you're able to do in post production. And this is something which is, again, extremely important, and you can definitely bring some of those things to the level that you're going to be happy with. So that's pretty much concludes what I would like to share with you guys. Please let me know if you guys have any additional questions. I will be more than happy to answer them. I know when it comes to the projectors, shooting with projector, a lot of people are struggling with, but I'm here for you guys. So if you have any specific questions, please feel free to contact me. But I have one request when it comes to basically answering some of those questions. Whenever you guys sending stuff to me, I would suggest to send me some images, send me some behind the scenes stuff, and some of those things which you guys struggle with. Because if you're gonna just send me an email and saying, hey, can you tell me how to shoot with projector, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not gonna respond to this, because like I need to know where you need help. I cannot just kind of reveal all this stuff, because you need to practice, you need to somehow kind of see where you're at, and whenever you kind of get stuck, I'm gonna be here for you and I can help you. But if you don't do anything and you just want me to tell you what you should do, like I'm getting a lot of those, and I'm kind of getting frustrated some of the times, because someone's sitting not doing nothing and they just wanted all the information. So I highly recommend it. Try to do it. If it's not going to work, I'm sure you're going to know exactly where you're stuck and what doesn't work, and then I can kind of help you out and tell you what you can do to improve some of those things. Okay, sorry for this little rant at the end. I just want to kind of make sure we are clear on this, and I'm ready to help you guys out, but you guys also have to do your work on your end. So please feel free to contact me if you have any additional questions, and I hope you guys like this image, you like this entire process, and stay tuned for another episode how I create this headshot. So have a fantastic day, and I'll chat with you guys very soon. Bye bye.